It should be noted right away that this list is not exhaustive, nor an attempt to rank the greatest aliens. I genuinely believe that there are far more extraterrestrial races in the universe than science fiction could conceive, and, we haven't yet encountered any of them. However, in terms of speculating about their potential, the field has undoubtedly given it the old college try. This list, therefore, is nothing more or less than a few of the aliens I have had the pleasure of learning about through books. Some are friends, some are enemies, others are neither, and, honestly, some fine people are misinterpreted. The following standards apply in an attempt to at least somewhat restrict the options. There are no short stories or visual media. Only races found in books are included. No matter how awesome the aliens are, the book has to be good enough to read. The aliens need to be sufficiently detailed for you to know what to anticipate if you were to unexpectedly encounter them. They must be distinctive and unforgettable. Here are a few, in no particular sequence, that I believe I know. #15. Alag. Gordon R. Dixon's 1987 novel Way of the Pilgrim was inspired by the Alag, who quickly conquered Earth despite being difficult for humans to pronounce, and having a deep glottal stop after the initial A. According to their own worldview, the Alag are incredibly just masters. It is a grave transgression for one of their species to mistreat their human cattle. However, their strict code of conduct and demands for adherence irritate others. The Alag are actually a conquered race themselves, running from an unidentified but incredibly strong foe that stole their home worlds. Tall and proud, each with an arsenal of personal weapons and a Spartan perspective on their situation, they are essentially warriors. Every Alag believes that duty is the greatest virtue, and all of their duties are focused on one day returning to their former worlds. In order to achieve this ultimate objective, they use the races they conquer to exploit resources. Our hero is Shane Everett, a talented linguist who works for First Captain Leet On, the alien leader, as a translator courier corp. The usage of a pilgrim as a universal metaphor of the human condition, which becomes a symbol for the fledgling resistance movement, is alluded to in the book title. The book is Dixon at his best, and that is a high caliber of writing. It is engrossing, warmly human, and occasionally mesmerizing. #14. Cyclos. Ignore the utterly terrible John Travolta film. Put aside your opinions about L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. I recently finished reading his enormous 1982 book Battlefield Earth, 1,066 paperback pages. It's a rollicking space opera, just what the genre is meant to be. It's not just worlds that the Cyclos conquer. They are not limited to conquering galaxies. They take over entire universes. The key to instantaneous teleportation is only known to them. The intergalactic mining company, which drives the locals back to the Stone Age and then methodically depletes their planet of every accessible ore, practically to the core, is one of their largest enterprises. Oh, and cruelty is delicious to the Cyclos. Turl, the corrupt, even by their standards, security head of Earth, is plotting to amass wealth by training indigenous people to engage in illicit mining on his behalf. Excellent human and alien characters in a fast-paced narrative that will make you forget you are reading. Another extraterrestrial race in the book that is special and essential to the conclusion is the Selekis, to whom a tribute must be given. Thranks. The majority of Alan Dean Foster's books, which are set in the human Thranks or Human X Commonwealth, feature well-known characters like Flinks and Pip, with the Thranks appearing only in passing. However, one book described how humans came to associate with the Thranks while delving deeply into their civilization. That would be Nor Crystal Tears, published back in 1982, which is primarily written from the perspective of the Thranks. Even though there is plenty of room for individualism within the species, by the end of the book, you are so much rooting for the insectoid Thranks to form an alliance with humans that you would instantly recognize any instance of Foster not treating a Thranks as a Thranks. However, he manages the race flawlessly. Additionally, I enjoy praying mantises a lot. Martians, in particular the Martians in the 1955 book Martians Go Home by Frederick Brown. They are literally little green men, but they are assholes first, foremost, and always. Their primary occupation appears to be being an asshole. They actually overnight invade Earth in millions, speak English with a Brooklyn accent, and start acting like complete nuisances, with catastrophic, perhaps deadly outcomes. They can teleport to any location, and even though they cannot be touched, they are so large that you cannot see through them. Thousands of car and airplane crashes. They enjoy nothing more than telling you who your wife is having an affair with, disclosing national defense secrets to foreign nations, making disparaging remarks about human frailties, and doing everything else to cause you as much trouble as they can. I haven't encountered anyone who hasn't enjoyed this book, which is nearly unanimously regarded as a genre masterpiece. Pequeninos. Orson Scott Card's 1986 follow-up to his undoubtedly well-known book Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, is a worthy addition to Jay Frater's list of science fiction for non-science fiction readers. For the first time, a book has won both the Hugo and Nebula Prizes. Ender is still the main character, but Speaker's tone, setting, and subject matter are very different. The rich portrayal of the piggy culture is what gets the nod here, even though many people would probably disagree and argue that the buggers or even Jane should be listed as a classic extraterrestrial race instead of Pequinos, especially since, much to Ender's dismay, the challenges of interspecies communication are once again at the forefront as people try, in vain, to comprehend Pequinos without interfering with their normal growth. A must-read for any science fiction reader interested in comparative religion, it is rather poignant at times. Before you become scared, let me say that I am definitely not interested in that, yet I still thought the book was fantastic. If nothing else, we should keep in mind the ideas of Varels, non-humans with whom communication is impossible, like intelligent viruses, Raman, which are non-humans with whom we communicate as though they were human, and Framling, meaning humans from other planets. Overlords. Arthur C. Clarke's 1953 classic Childhood's End, which is, widely read in science fiction classes at universities all around the world, portrays yet another invader of Earth, but this time, it's one that's, for the most part, actually pretty benign. The overlords sit far away in their enormous starships, positioned over major cities, just quietly improving everyone's quality of life and putting an end to a lot of our enduring problems. Humanity is, an adaptable species. However, the Jungian theory of racial memory explains why the overlords will remain hidden for 50 years. I won't give anything away, but honestly, this inclusion is probably the reason why so many academics really enjoy teaching the book. In any case, there's definitely a secret behind the overlord's actions. The simplest way to characterize what happens when that is disclosed is, poignant. Fifth, Jerry Pournelle needed the money, but Larry Niven didn't. Whether they're eating filet mignon or hamburger helper doesn't really matter because, honestly, both men are science fiction writers. Together, they formed one of the most fruitful partnerships in the field's history. Footfall from 1985 is a prime example. Back in college in the 1980s, even people who didn't read science fiction were reading Niven and Pournelle novels as they waited for the next Heinlein release. In any case, anyone who's read the novel has to picture the fifth as elephants. The fifth are a herd culture, just as humans are an individual culture and ants are a colony society. It's an excellent handling of that fundamental idea, and since they're herd animals, they really don't get the idea of diplomatic compromise. You either rule or you submit. Specifically, an intelligent herd engaged in a challenging conquest manages its internal politics with remarkable skill. Drac. Alright, a few months after he publicly criticizes the awards, a man releases a novelette that wins the Nebula. The Hugo is then won by it, in addition to the John W. Campbell Award, since the man is relatively new. He is, therefore, the first individual in history to receive all three of those honors in a single year. What a big deal? In a way. Hollywood arrived along with a largely underappreciated movie starring Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. Gossett was even nominated for Best Actor despite the movie's lack of success. Thanks to Enemy Mine, published in 1979, Barry B. Longyear is now a prominent figure in science fiction. Humans and Drac are at war. One alien fighter pilot and one human fighter pilot are stranded on a planet where life is, to put it mildly, challenging. To survive, they have to combine their resources. The issue is that Jeriba can procreate without a spouse because the Dracs are hermaphrodites. Next phrase contains a spoiler. Our human is compelled to raise the alien offspring as his own after an untimely death. With a beginning and an ending added on at either end, both the novel and the film are essentially the tale of one human and one alien interacting. You will cry if you are in the proper frame of mind. If you've read the book and watched the movie, you will undoubtedly recognize the Drac. The Drac are included here because they meet the requirements. I find most of Longyear's writing to be hardly readable, but I own a lot of his novels because of Enemy Mine's overwhelming tragedy. Seven, Fuzzies. With the release of Little Fuzzy in 1962, H. Beam Piper really cemented his place in the annals of science fiction. It's possible that the most frequently used adjectives in reviews of this book are delightful and charming. And honestly, it's not the reviewer's fault. The Fuzzies are just so adorable and cozy. But there's actually a pretty significant issue explored in the book. What does sapience mean? Is this life form merely a thing that we can rule over, or is it a sentient being that can reason for itself? In which case, exploitation and even murder become a real problem. None of the sequels, which, by the way, weren't usually written by the original author, are as entertaining as the original. Six, Groachi. It's kind of debatable if Keith Laumer's work in the Bolo series or his portrayal as James Retief, a James Bond-like assistant diplomat, is more well-known. Most likely the latter, though. There are several decades' worth of stories and novels. In any case, these humorous stories of human resourcefulness and mischievous behavior in the face of human diplomatic incompetence have been popular for many years. In the majority of them, the Groachi are the masterminds behind whatever strange aliens are currently engaged in. Even though the Groachi don't back down at the diplomatic negotiating table, they're nearly unable to deal honestly. The Groachi are fierce unless they are restrained. Yet the books are humorous and honestly full of puns. Since they are more of a two-dimensional race, they're hardly on the list. Still enjoyable. Five, Ythrians. There are far too many commas in Poul Anderson's word count alone, making him one of the deans of American science fiction. Many of those words came from writing numerous short stories for periodicals in the past. Anderson has a somewhat fragmented future history, which, by the way, is a term linked to Robert A. Heinlein. The Polis-Satekic League, which covered 4,000 years of human interstellar travel, served as the backdrop for many of his stories. The League is a thinly veiled, if veiled at all, parable of robber baron capitalism in the 19th century. So what about the Ythri, then? One requirement is broken by the Earth Book of Stormgate, published in 1978. It's a collection of stories rather than a novel. However, Locke of the Stormgate Choth presents each tale as a historian or scholar. Additionally, the reader is undoubtedly given a taste of Ythrian society by the intertwined stories themselves and Locke's annotations. Although Ythrians also appear in other works by Anderson, the Earth Book is the finest means to include that species in our list, and they are definitely deserving of inclusion. Four, Hroshi. It's difficult to describe these guys without giving anything away, but I'll try. Before the term Hiroshi is ever mentioned, more than half of Robert A. Heinlein's 1954 juvenile science fiction book The Star Beast has already taken place. However, they have a lot of power and are unwilling to compromise. They just won't accept no when they're hunting for someone. Additionally, the person they are searching for finds it difficult to accept rejection. They're not really disobedient, they don't want to hurt anyone, they merely follow directions literally, and they're constantly a bit hungry. In addition to being a person, Lumox is also a friend. Three, for Hilnor. Considering that they are essentially enormous spiders, they are pretty damned human. In his 2000 book, Calculating God, Canadian author Robert J. Sawyer, possibly leading proponent of hard science fiction today, introduced us to this race. One could argue that the aliens are only bystanders, even if the novel's events involve the four Hilnors visiting Earth and conversing with a human paleontologist. Sawyer addresses truly astounding ideas about creation, cosmology, and the existence of life itself in light of that experience. However, the reader would be pleased to have that person as a friend and would love to have Hollis as a dinner guest. Meets the requirement of understanding the true nature of such people. However, as an aside, consider three close pals. A fundamentalist is certain that he will be saved. The second is an agnostic who believes in God but is unsure of what it entails. The third is an atheist who only considers chemical reactions. Keep in mind that they are all close buddies. The book they should talk about over a campfire is Calculating God. Two, Shtorans. Even if you are unfamiliar with David Gerrold, you most likely already know that he penned the Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles. He has produced a variety of novels and short tales of differing caliber. However, he released A Matter for Men, the first volume in what became known as The War Against the Tor, in 1983. Even while the worms are the most obvious manifestation of the Tor, what we have here is nothing less than an entire biosphere's endeavor to subjugate Earth. This led to a number of other books, some of which, luckily, are just as good as the first. However, as the Tauran infestation grows and human response shifts in tandem, they must be read sequentially. Even with zero speciesism, it would be stretching it to refer to a Tauran worm as a person, which is almost a violation of a criterion. Perhaps a god, but not a human. 1. Yilan. Another very well-known race, and let's hope that a film adaptation of Harry Harrison's 1984 masterwork West of Eden will be produced by someone with a sizable budget. It is a magnificent example of painstaking alien creation and gave rise to a few successors, with the customary modest decline in quality. The Yilan, however, are not really aliens in the traditional meaning of the word. Rather, this is an alternate account of Earth's evolution. We are still in the hunter-gatherer stage of evolution. The Yilan are intelligent, upright, 4-foot-tall reptiles that are descended from dinosaurs. Their technology is based almost entirely on the manipulation of biological sciences, and they live in a matriarchal society. They actually cultivate plants and animals that have been altered to serve a variety of purposes, including living blankets, boats, and microscopes. Humans are temperate, while Yilan are tropical. However, conflict arises as the two communities are driven closer to one another by imminent climate change. The human protagonist, Carrick, is in a unique position because he was raised among the Yilani after being captured at a young age. The real brilliance of the novel is in this background, which enables the author to show the reader the incredibly rich Yilan culture without primarily relying on exposition. We learn as Carrick does. And it turns out to be quite an education, as readers gain a genuine understanding of a whole foreign society without sacrificing any quality of narrative. Harrison's output varies widely in quality. Some of his pieces are terrible, many are craftsmanship-like, and a few are extremely good. However, he clearly succeeded with this one.